folks, and welcome to another episode of Midweek. We are so glad to have you here today. And so glad to have you come back every week and participate and listen to our stories as we meet folks, as we share verses with you, and just touch base in the middle of the week. This week we have, sadly, probably for the very last time appearing with us on Midweek, we have Pastor Joyce DeGier VanderSpek. Joyce has become a fixture around IPC for the last 8 years. We'll get into that in a second. But she's also become a friend over the last 5 or so years to me, and to many of us, I would dare say. So, Joyce, it's really good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, it's great to be here. Welcome to Midweek, folks.
So, over the last 5 years, I've noticed that you and I have shared the same challenges, and that's been around hair. We've, especially during COVID. So I was looking back at some pictures from the last 8 years, and yeah, there's been there's been quite a number of hairstyles that you've rocked, Pastor Joyce.
I try my best to, stay contemporary. COVID's been really difficult because my haircuts keep being delayed. So this is the best I could do today. So, but I still think I look better than you, Steve.
You do. You do. Thanks for that. Another thing that people may or may not know about you is that you have a pretty eclectic and funky set of socks that you like to rock.
I'll do my best to show them to you. It's kind of a geometric shape, and if I had known, I would have prepared a little better. But so these are turquoise heeled, yellow top, and they're really quite fun.
Speaking of fun, that's what I would say a number of us who have come to know you have noticed about you. What role does levity and having fun play in your life?
So my parents named me Joyce, which means joy, right? So I think there's something prophetic about naming a child, and maybe something about that. I'm the youngest kid of 7. I was born 7 years after my next youngest sibling. So I learned how to keep the gang entertained early in life. And Steve, you keep fixing your hair, which is cracking me up and bringing me great joy and fun. So yeah, I love to have fun. And I think having fun and teasing people is a really great way to get to know them. And I often tell people I only tease people I really love. So Steve, I really love you.
Oh, that would explain a lot. You must. So tell me, Joyce, some of what we like to do here in Midweek is sometimes ask questions that people would resonate with and go, yeah, you know what? I always wanted to know that. So here's a question for you. Tell us about who Joyce was and where Joyce was 9 years ago.
Wow. All right. So 9 years ago, I was in Montreal, becoming as Presbyterian as possible at Presbyterian College in Montreal. I actually did this wild and crazy thing. On Monday mornings, I would get my kids, drop them off at Woodstock Christian School. Then I would jump on the 403 and grab a train in Aldershot to Montreal, make it to Montreal for a evening 7 o'clock class. Then I would do classes all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, hightail it to the train station in Montreal on Wednesdays, and I would make it home for 1 a.m. on Thursdays, and then I would be up and super mom in the morning getting my kids to school. It was crazy, but it made me very Presbyterian.
What drove you to want to be in ministry? What perpetuated you? What kind of drove you to want to do that?
My previous career was actually in social work. And I just found that I've always been really passionate about justice and passionate about people being all they could be, all that God created them to be. And I found that social work didn't have all the answers, but I really think God is the ultimate answer. So in 2008, I was working part-time. I started taking some courses at McMaster Divinity College, found out even after having 3 kids, after being in my late 30s, I still had a somewhat functioning brain, and fell in love with studying the Bible, studying New Testaments. And so my intention was to merge theology and social work and become a chaplain. I was thinking of actually becoming a chaplain in the correctional system. So that's kind of where I was headed.
Tell us, can you share with us how those two things have intersected in reality, and how they've dovetailed together in your ministry in the last 8 years?
So working in social work in Oxford County, I was born and raised in Oxford County, and I couldn't believe how there were so many people in our community really struggling. Again, social work to me didn't have the answers, but I think God is the answer. And people realizing that God created every single human being with in his image, and every single person has purpose. Every single person is unique. Every single person is created with gifts and abilities. And my greatest desire was for people to know just how loved they are by God and how valued they are. So part of my call to ministry and merging kind of my social work background was engaging in outreach ministry in downtown Woodstock.
So that's a really nice encapsulation of how you got to be involved. Now, those of us who know you know you for your involvement in the downtown core in Woodstock. Can you give us a 30-second summary of how that got started? Because I really want to dive into what you've actually done, boots on the ground, and no pun intended, because you are the queen of boots. Beside the socks, you rock different pair of boots, and makes me kind of jelly because I have a shoe boot thing as well. Maybe that's why we like each other. But no, I want to talk about your boots on the ground experience in downtown Woodstock. But give us a little bit of an idea, maybe 30 seconds, of just how that all got kickstarted.
So part of my call to IPC was also to start missional communities, a way that groups of people could reach out and just show the gospel in really relevant ways. So one of the things that was happening was that Ted Gilverson had a bunch of rooming houses. So he had multiple homes, and he was trying to provide housing for people who really struggle to have stable housing. And he invited me and actually Chef Jed, to come and start a group in one of his boarding houses. And so we started with 8 people. We gathered around food. Jed taught us how to do some cooking. And then more and more people wanted to come. So we grew out of Ted's boarding house, and we moved into what's now the gym. It used to be part Calvary, or the Movement Church used to be downtown Woodstock. And the remaining part of that building, we were in the basement. It was the YFC building. So we were there for a while, and then we moved to the River of Life. And we've just kept growing as we moved. So opportunity to gather together, to combat loneliness, to inform people just how loved they are, form community that can really build people up and get them to know each other and get them to know Jesus.
At that time, in my recollection, it's probably when I was first coming to IPC. I heard of a program called the Picnic by the River. Is that what it was called at that time? Yeah. So that's what you're referring to. Cool. So tell us a little bit about the a little bit further about how that ministry has morphed or evolved from being Picnic at the River to what it is right now, because there's a number of things going on from the River of Life building downtown that you're involved in.
So Picnic at the River, we were meeting at the River of Life, and we actually had a competition with the people who come to the dinner to name. We used to call it Tuesday evening dinners, which was, I thought, very clever because it's TED, TED. And Ted was the one who started Tuesday evening dinners. He wanted it renamed, so we had a competition to name Tuesday evening, to rename it, and it became Picnic at the River. Picnics are fun. Everybody wants to come to a picnic. So that grew. We started at Thursday night, and then we started a Saturday night, and we were gathered together again around food and to be community to each other, to care for each other, to pray for each other. And Saturday was really fun because we had musical guests and movie nights. So that was really fun. Then there was also people started to ask us to pray for them because they had job interviews and they wanted to work. And so often people had a good interview, they would start a job, and then because of anxiety or depression or other challenges in their lives, work just wouldn't work out. And so I saw a real need for a supportive work environment, and I heard about what Paris was doing with the Raw Carrot and thought, hey, this would be great to provide some people real mentoring, real life skills training, a positive work experience where they would know that they had gifts, they had abilities, they had purpose. So that's how the Raw Carrot came to be as well. And now, response to COVID, Monica has been coming to a Picnic at the River for about 5 years, and she changed from someone who would hightail it out of the room, start doing dishes whenever we started devotions or talking about God. And I gently coaxed her, hey, Monica, part of this community is that you get to participate in devotions and talking about Jesus and reflecting on just how important God is in our lives and how God is there for us in our anxiety and our worry and in every step of our life. So she started gradually to participate and ask questions, and then really cool, in response to COVID and in response to Sunday not having anywhere where people could go to get a good meal, she started Sunday supper with friends. So those are the three things that have kind of grown out of the downtown community. We kind of call the outreach ministry in downtown Woodstock. It has three components now.
Wow. Well, being that the ministry that you're involved in is really people-centric, has a holistic approach, not just to the physical well-being, but the spiritual well-being of people and the growth of our fellow human and the growth of God's children. That must be really heartening for you. Can you think of an experience or experiences? Obviously you probably could think of hundreds, but can you think of any highlights that have happened for you that have been real God moments, when you really saw the Lord speaking into this ministry? And I would imagine that even over the course of 8 years, God has changed your heart as much as he's changed those people that you've impacted as well.
True. I got this crazy idea to do some renovating at the River of Life building. So got a budget approved, and so undertook like taking down drywall, exposing brick, ripping up carpet, all those sorts of things. And I was in so far over my head. I was able to convince the powers that be that this was a really great idea, but I didn't have a clue. So often I would show up at the River of Life, not quite knowing, okay, is anybody going to join me today? And so often God would provide exactly the right people with exactly the right skills. And the River of Life was able to be transformed into this really beautiful space, this multi-purpose space, easier to clean and care for. And it's just reminded me again and again that God is so good, and God continues to provide. When he calls us to something, he's going to empower it to happen. He's going to provide the right people with the right skills. And God's just shown up again and again to make that happen. But can I talk about a highlight at IPC?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. I love community, and I love the idea of God telling us that the two most important things that we could ever do is to love God and love each other. And I just think that baptism is such an incredible experience of that. I love doing baptisms. I love doing adult baptisms, total immersion. Oh man, we've had some like mic mess ups, but we've had some beautiful, beautiful moments of people's testimony and of people really experiencing, God, God bringing them closer to him. And I also love baptizing babies. And I love that moment where I ask the congregation, I say, hey, folks, this is your kid too. This is your child. And do you promise to pray for this child, to help nurture their faith, to help the parents, help them get this child get to a point where they're going to say, I love Jesus. And I love that moment where people stand up and say, yes, this is our kid too. And
Absolutely.
I just love that idea of being that covenantal community that cares for each other, that nurtures each other's faith, that encourages growth, spiritual growth, that prays for each other. And to me, that's what brought me to IPC, the gracious people, the people who wanted to see the next generation grow into people who knew what it was to be loved by our good and gracious God. And so I think baptism is one of those moments where we are the best we can be as community, where we show God's love and God's support to each other, and where it's one of those thin places where it feels like God is so close and we're so close as community.
I remember being in my office the day that you came in to tell us that you were going to be leaving, and I remember not knowing what to say. I just didn't know what to say to that. I didn't know how to respond to that. But obviously, I am well aware that God moves. So originally, he moved you to want to dovetail or find an intersection between social work and ministry. And you've done that. You've experienced his moving in your life for the last 8 years. What can you tell us about, evidently he's still on the move, and where are you going? What are you doing? What's up, Pastor Joyce? What's going on?
Well, it's always such an adventure with God. And so it's actually been over the last about 14 months that that God has been nudging me. Okay, it's time to move on. And I had at least 10, but God, you can't take me away from the downtown. The raw carrot's just starting. You can't take me away from that. Like, They need me. I'm needed. I need to do this. I haven't done this. God, like, no, I love the people of IPC. I feel safe. I feel loved. Like, no. And so it was like I was holding on tight, but God over the last 14 months has released my grip and just really shown me that he's got it, that he loves the people downtown more than I could ever love them or I could ever imagine. He loves the people of IPC just so incredibly much. And he's God, I'm not. So he's taught me a lot about releasing. I'm a pretty driven person. I like having goals. But he's told me that I just need to be still and know that he is God. And I know this is God because my own longing would be, okay, I'm going to accomplish this. We're going to do this. Boop, boop, boop. And he's saying, no, like just be still. And I don't know what's coming next. I know I need a period of rest. I know he's equipping me, preparing me for something new. It hasn't been easy to say goodbye to IPC. I'm speaking next Sunday on just how much I hate goodbyes. But God has something great for IPC, and God's got my future too, whatever that's gonna be. So that's a really long answer to a brief question, but I don't know what's next, but I know God's got us all, and it's gonna be good.
At Christmas time, when we were getting together and we were baking, and that baking was going to be shared downtown, you misquoted scripture, but I love it. Yeah, it was like the Message 2.0. And you said that we were the hands and feet and bakers of Jesus. And in all seriousness, what did you mean by that? And how does that guide your life as far as living our Christianity in a practical way?
When my family and I started coming to IPC many years ago, IPC was still in the old building and transitioning. This building was being built, and there was a campaign that was called "Blessed to be a Blessing," and I have no idea why I have been so blessed in life, and well, actually, I do. I know that I have been blessed with a wacky sense of humor, incredible socks, gorgeous boots, because I have been called to really practically show God's love and really practically be able to walk side by side with people in really challenging situations, and to be able to, in practical ways, say, there's a God who loves you. There's a God who created you, who cares for you. There's a God who wants to take your struggle and draw you close. There's a God who wants to show you that there is so much more. There is healing and redemption and restoration. And for us church folks, like, well, for everybody, I just think it's amazing that God invites us into his plan of redemption and restoration. He invites us to come alongside and be Jesus for people. He invites us to use all our strengths and use our weaknesses, use the challenging parts of our life, the pain that we've endured, to be real to people, to make the gospel message, the good news that Jesus Christ loves people, that Jesus Christ wants to save and redeem people. He wants us to speak that into people's lives. So I think that includes all of our gifts and abilities. So we truly are the hands, the feet, the bakers, the farmers, the business people, the even the youth pastors of Jesus. We're called,
Even that, eh?
I know, we're called to represent Jesus Christ here on earth and to bring his kingdom, to bring his goodness, his love, his grace, his mercy. And I like, is there anything more exciting than that, that our daily activity can contribute to blessing somebody else's life? Our daily words, our daily actions can draw other people to Jesus. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. That's amazing. So yeah, that's my answer.
I heard a phrase the other day, and it was along the lines of I have been blessed to be a blessing. And I think that's a nice encapsulation of what you just said. And it's a great way to live your life, to realize that the Lord has blessed you and I as believers in order that we can then pay it forward and be a blessing to others. And I think that's what I have seen in you, Joyce, for the last 5 years, and what people at IPC for the last 8 years have seen in you, that you've really led by example. And I just want to let you know that again, that we appreciate everything you've done at church. And I know that you're not one to run around tooting your own horn to a fault. But I know that there's been a lot of background stuff that we'll never know about. But I do believe with all my heart that someday in heaven, someone will come up to you and say, "Smile, you're on." No, just, they won't say you're on candid camera, but they'll say, "Joyce, you may not remember me, but I was impacted by you," and then they will tell you their story. I think that's going to happen to you more often than not by a number of people, just because of your quiet stick-to-itiveness, and you're just pushing through and getting things done. You're a get-it-done kind of gal. So thank you very much, Joyce, for being with Midweek today, and we just pray God's blessing on you in the future as you move to wherever it is, wherever God has in store for you. I know it will be amazing.
Thanks so much. And it's been such a privilege to be in relationship with so many amazing people at IPC. And so thank you. Thank you for blessing me, truly. Thank you for loving me with all my quirks. Thank you for all the hours you have volunteered. Thank you for using your gifts and abilities to build God's kingdom. Thanks for being awesome. And Steve, I love you.
Well, Joyce, it's been great again. Thanks so much. I hope as you've watched this video today, folks, you've been blessed, you've been encouraged, and also that you've been challenged by some of the things that Pastor Joyce has said today. And you know, I said to Joyce the other day, I said, "You're not just leaving a hole, you're leaving a crater." And not only did I mean that to say that she's left a huge impact in our church and in our community, but that she's leaving a ginormous hole. So my challenge to you today, our challenge to you today, would to be to go before God and really ask Him, make yourself vulnerable, and really ask Him where He would have you help in some sort of ways. There's all sorts of things that IPC and its community is involved in, and we would encourage you to contact the church office, to ask around, ask other people who are involved in different ministries and life groups at IPC how you could be involved and how you could be an impact for God's kingdom as well. So, folks, until next time, we love you. Have a great week. Cheers.